moment I opened the walk-in freezer door, I knew I wasn't alone. There were no footsteps, no sounds, just cold air and a trail of fresh, wet boot prints leading into the dark corner. And when I turned my flashlight, I saw him, crouched there smiling like he'd been waiting for me the whole time. You think night shifts are lonely? Try working alone while something's watching. These aren't just stories, they're true accounts. And if you listen closely, you might realize you felt it too. If this already sends chills down your spine, hit that bell subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will make you question every shadow you've ever ignored. Part 1. The Last Delivery at Devil's Point. I used to think isolation was what I needed. Silence, distance, space from everything and everyone. I just turned 30, reeling from a breakup that cracked something deep in me. Lost my job a few weeks later. Then another. So when I found a cheap cabin rental in Estes Park, Colorado, 40 minutes outside town, tucked near Devil's Point Trail, I didn't hesitate. It was small, cold, and mostly empty, but it was mine. Quiet enough to hear my own thoughts, I told myself. That was the lie that made it feel like healing. I picked up a night shift at a local gas station on Highway 36. It wasn't much, just 2 pumps, an old flickering sign, and a convenience store that felt older than my grandparents. But it was steady, clean, predictable. By midnight most nights, the world went still. Just me, the hum of the freezer, and whatever was crawling outside in the dark. It had become my rhythm. Restock shelves, sip lukewarm coffee, stare at the moths headbutting the glass. Sometimes I'd hum to myself. Sometimes I'd talk out loud just to hear a voice. Until that night in early October when everything changed. It was cold. The kind of cold that crawls under your skin and stays there. I was halfway through organizing the chips aisle when the door chime rang. Just one crisp note. A man stepped in. Hood up, head low, hands buried in a gray sweatshirt. No eye contact. No words. He didn't even glance at the shelves. He stood near the fridge, unmoving. Then he drifted to the counter, still not saying a word. I tried to play it cool, asked if he needed anything. He barely shook his head, then turned and walked out slowly. No purchase. No browsing. No car starting outside, just gone. That alone would have been strange, but the look in his eyes, that distant stare, clung to me like a shadow. I stepped outside and scanned the lot. Nothing, just wind. 10 minutes later, I went to the back to fix the receipt printer. That's when the lights died. Not flickered. Died. One moment I was staring at the jammed paper roll, and the next, the entire station went black. I reached under the counter, found the emergency flashlight, and started making my way to the breaker panel. But then I heard it. Glass. Not a crack, not a tap, a shatter, like someone had hurled a brick through the entrance. I froze. The sound echoed off the walls, then faded into complete silence. I ran. Flashlight shaking, breath stuck in my throat, I reached the front counter. My heart slammed against my ribs. The large front pane was shattered, glass scattered across the floor like ice. And he was there, same guy, but now he was inside. And this time he wasn't empty-handed. He held a crowbar, rusted, long. Like something pulled from the ruins of a barn. He didn't speak, didn't yell. He just walked toward me, slow and deliberate. I raised my hands, told him the register was open, told him I wouldn't fight, told him I had a daughter. I don't, but I'd say anything to survive. He pointed the crowbar toward the till. I fumbled with the keys, hands trembling so violently I nearly dropped them. When I finally got it open, he calmly scooped the cash with one hand while holding the crowbar with the other. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and jerked his chin toward the back. I didn't understand until he pointed again. The cooler. I begged, told him I had asthma. I cried. He didn't care. He marched me to the walk-in freezer and opened it. The cold hit me like a punch to the chest. Before I could protest again, he shoved me in, tied my hands with thick zip ties, ankles too, then slammed the door. It was dark, the kind of dark that makes your thoughts echo. Only sound was the freezer hum and my breathing getting louder quicker. My fingers went numb first, then my ears started ringing. I screamed, kicked the door. Nothing. I don't know how long I was in there. Hours, maybe. My mind fractured. I started mumbling prayers. At some point, I hallucinated that someone was knocking, but it wasn't a hallucination. It was real, 3 loud bangs. Then the click of keys. The door opened. Light, warmth, a face. Roy, the delivery guy. He'd come early, saw the glass, noticed blood by the counter. Mine, apparently, from a cut I never noticed. He cut the zip ties, wrapped me in a wool blanket, called 911. I was shaking so bad the paramedics thought I was having a seizure. Later, the cops said I was lucky. He'd hit 2 other rural stations, always at night. Always alone workers, same hoodie, same crowbar, never caught. Some say he died in the mountains. Others say he moved on. Me, I just hope I never see his face again. But sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I hear that freezer door shut, and the silence right after. That kind of silence doesn't feel empty. It feels like something is waiting. That was just one night, one story, one face in the dark. But what if I told you there are more, many more, different towns, same feeling, same terror? And sometimes the scariest part isn't what you saw, but what you never realized was watching. Subscribe to the channel right now if you want to hear more true horror stories from those who were supposed to be alone until they were. Next, static on the headset, the voice that wasn't there. Ready? Let's keep the lights on tonight. Part 2. Static on the headset, the voice that wasn't there. I never thought I'd be scared of a drive-through headset. I mean, I've worked the closing shift at our fast food joint just outside Savannah, Georgia for 3 years. Same town I grew up in. Same building I used to grab fries from after high school. It's nothing fancy. Just a squat brick box off the highway with golden arches lit up like a beacon for the lost and tired. And on that night, I was both. It was a Tuesday just past midnight. The crew had clocked out and I was doing my usual final sweep. Floors mopped, registers balanced, trash taken out. I had my phone in my apron pocket, music playing softly through the drive-through headset I forgot I was still wearing. Until it crackled. A harsh static popped in my ear and I flinched, thinking the battery was low. But then it cleared, and a man's voice came through. Calm, cold, perfectly clear. "Are you alone in there?" I froze. There was no background noise. No cars. No other chatter on the channel. I paused, assuming it was one of the guys messing with me. That happened sometimes, someone hanging around the drive-through speaker to spook the night shift. So I laughed and replied, "Nope. Got a whole SWAT team back here. You want to meet them?" I muted the headset and went back to wiping the counter, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just some bored trucker. Until I heard the car alarm. It was coming from the back lot. My stomach dropped. There were only 2 cars parked out there, mine and the assistant manager's who had left hours ago. I rushed through the kitchen and out the back door. The driver's side door of my car was wide open, alarm blaring, headlights flashing. I always lock my car. It's a reflex. I've checked it twice before every shift since I was 17. I approached cautiously, half expecting to see a broken window or maybe a raccoon, but there was no damage. No signs of forced entry, just a Polaroid. It sat on the driver's seat like someone had placed it there with care. When I picked it up, my legs buckled. It was a picture of me, taken from behind. I was locking the restaurant's front door. wearing the same uniform, same purse, same hair tied in a bun, except it wasn't tonight. It was last night. The photo was taken from the tree line that borders the lot. I stared at it, unable to move, unable to think. That's when I noticed something else, scrawled on the bottom in red ink as if finger-written. Nice routine. Same time tomorrow. I didn't scream. I just got in the car, door still open, Polaroid in hand, and drove. I don't remember how I got home. I barely slept that night. Even my cat seemed unsettled, pacing around the apartment, staring at corners. I checked every lock 3 times, sat in the kitchen with a steak knife on the table. The next morning I went straight to the store. My general manager, Dale, was already in his office. I handed him the Polaroid. He turned pale. He pulled up the security footage on his laptop. We went through it together, but something was wrong. The feed for the previous 2 nights was just static. No footage. Timestamps frozen at 12:04 a.m. The exact minute I heard the voice. And the back lot camera, gone, completely erased. No files, no errors, just nothing. We called the security company. They came out that afternoon and said it looked like the system had been manually tampered with. Someone had accessed the DVR, wiped selective files, and even altered the backup timestamps. Whoever did it knew exactly how the system worked. They also pointed out something else I hadn't noticed. The security box under the counter, it had scratch marks, as if someone had already been inside. I started to tremble. The technician continued almost offhandedly. The damage was recent, hours old. That meant he came inside. Not just outside watching from the trees. He had been in the building. That night I didn't go back to work. I called out sick. I unplugged everything in my apartment. I sat on the floor, lights off, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did, until 3 nights later. I had finally convinced myself to go outside, just a quick grocery run. The sun was still out. I told myself it was safe. When I returned, there was a folded piece of paper wedged in my doorframe. Not taped. Not dropped. WEDGED. Like someone wanted to make sure I saw it but didn't hear it being placed. It wasn't a note. It was another Polaroid. This time I was loading groceries into the trunk of my car, taken from far away. Blurry, but unmistakable me, my parking lot from earlier that same day. I felt like my lungs were filling with ice water. My hands shook so badly I dropped the photo. I burned it, right there in the sink, but I didn't feel better. I felt watched. It didn't stop there. Later that week, while scrolling through my camera roll, I noticed a file I didn't take. It wasn't a photo, it was a voice memo. 42 seconds long, the only sound breathing, and my name being whispered, repeated, slower, deeper, with long, drawn-out pauses. Angela. 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 I threw my phone across the room. Smashed the SIM. Got a new number. Still, every time I parked my car, I looked behind me. Checked the rearview mirror twice. Some part of me expected to see a flash of gray in the trees. I eventually told Dale I couldn't close anymore. He understood, said he'd cover the late shifts. But when I visited the restaurant a week later, the drive-through speaker was broken, burned, melted. Someone had poured acid on it. The casing was warped, almost like a face, mouth open in a scream. No one claimed responsibility. No footage, no witnesses, just another unsolved incident. That was 2 months ago. I still get chills every time I hear static or see headlights slow near my apartment. And sometimes when the wind picks up just right, I swear I hear that same voice. Are you alone in there? And the worst part, now I'm not sure how to answer, because I don't think he ever left. Part 3. The man behind the boiler, apartment 9, sees ghost caller. There's something about expensive buildings that makes people feel safe. Like security systems and polished marble lobbies can keep evil out. I used to think the same thing, until that night. My name's Claire. I was 27 when it happened, temping as the night concierge at a luxury high-rise in Seattle. One of those glass towers where the windows stretch from floor to ceiling and the elevators speak in gentle tones. I wasn't supposed to be there long, just filling in while the regular girl, Mia, took a 2-week vacation. She gave me a crash course in rules and routines. The most important one: never let anyone in you don't recognize. Even if they say they're a rideshare driver, even if they claim to know the tenant. No exceptions. That's how you get fired or worse, so I followed it to the letter. The first few nights were slow, uneventful. A couple of residents returning late, the hum of the desk monitor, an occasional click from the heating vents. I actually liked it, until night 5. It was 2:33 a.m. I was half asleep in the chair behind the desk, sipping cold coffee when I heard it, a knock. Not at the lobby doors, at the glass. 3 sharp taps. I looked up. A man stood there, dark hoodie, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly. He gave me a short wave like he expected me to buzz him in. I leaned to the side, pressed the intercom. "Can I help you?" His voice came through, low and steady. "I'm here to pick up Miranda, Unit C." I didn't recognize him, and I knew Miranda. She was a bright, bubbly tech exec who baked muffins for the staff once a month, always friendly. Still, I said what Mia taught me: "I'm sorry. I can't let you in unless the resident comes down themselves." He didn't argue, just nodded once, then turned and vanished beyond the camera's frame. I kept watching the feed for several minutes. Nothing. No one entered. No fob scan. No elevator call from 9C. I figured it was over. 10 minutes later, the desk phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID. Unit C. My chest tightened. I picked up. "Hi, sorry to bother you. The driver said you wouldn't let him in." The voice was off, slurred, monotone, like someone reading from a script. Miranda always had a smile in her voice. This wasn't her. I paused. "I'm sorry, can I just confirm?" Click. She, or whoever that was, hung up. I stared at the phone. The silence pressed in on me heavy. Something wasn't right. I checked the access logs. No one from 9C had entered or exited in the past 4 hours. And the call. The internal log said the call had come from inside the building. I picked up the intercom again and tried to buzz C. No answer. I stood up, did a slow sweep of the hallway, trying to calm myself. But when I reached the rear of the building, the service entrance, I stopped cold. The door was cracked open, just enough to let in the breeze. There was a rock holding it ajar. A smooth, round river rock. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It wasn't from our landscaping. I'd walked that garden path enough times to know. Someone had brought it, deliberately. I backed away, heart racing, and checked the camera room. Dark, pitch black. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. I used my phone flashlight. The main security feed cable was hanging, cut, clean, surgical, as if done with wire cutters, not yanked, not broken, snipped. I was shaking now. I backed out, locked the camera room, and returned to the front desk, trying to keep myself from panicking. I called 911, hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. As I waited, I flipped through the monitors. Most were dead or looping. But then I noticed something strange. The laundry room light was on. It had been off earlier. I was sure of it. No movement, just a faint flicker like something was casting shadows out of frame. The police arrived 7 minutes later. Felt like hours. 2 officers entered. One stayed with me, the other went to sweep the building. Then his voice crackled over the radio. "We've got someone. In the laundry room. Behind the boiler." I froze. "What?" he repeated, sounding tense. "He's wedged in there, crouched, holding something. We're moving in." The officer with me darted out. I sat, staring at the monitor, hands gripping the edge of the desk. Then I saw them dragging him out. A man, hoodie. Gloves, blank face. Like a mannequin come to life. He didn't struggle, didn't speak, just stared. As they cuffed him and walked him out the back, one officer returned. I asked what was he doing. His reply haunts me to this day. He was holding duct tape, zip ties, a flashlight, and a printed floor plan of the building. He'd been inside before. We think he followed a delivery driver in earlier, hid in a stairwell, knew the camera blind spots, knew how to use a fob once inside. But what shook me most, inside his jacket was a list, a handwritten list. My name was at the top, with notes, night shift, alone, desk unlocked, nervous habit bites lip. Always checks rear door at 2:30. I wanted to throw up. He'd been watching me, for days, weeks maybe. No one knew how he got the floor plans, or how he spoofed the call from 9C but the phone in that unit. It was found unplugged, smashed, hidden behind the couch. Miranda, she was fine. She'd left town that morning for a conference. Hadn't told anyone but her assistant, meaning he knew her schedule too. When I went home that morning, I walked straight to the mirror and cried, not out of weakness, out of rage. Rage that someone saw me as prey. Rage that safety was just an illusion. I never went back. I changed jobs, changed routines, even changed my phone number. But sometimes when I pass a high-rise at night, I glance at the cameras above the door and wonder if someone's watching, not from the outside, from the inside, where the lights don't reach, and the silence is too perfect. Part 4. The white sedan, the eyes behind the tinted glass. Some stories don't start with screaming. They start with watching. And watching doesn't feel like horror at first. It feels like suspicion. Like overthinking. Like a hunch you can't quite shake. That's how it began for me. My name's Deshaun. I was a senior at the University of Michigan, trying to make rent while finishing a double major. Night shift at a gas station just off Ann Arbor Road. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. 4 nights a week. It was quiet, almost too quiet. After midnight, the place felt frozen in amber. The fluorescent lights hummed. The coffee machine burbled. Sometimes a student would wander in, dazed and high, sometimes a trucker, but often it was just me and the vending machines. And then there was the car. A white sedan, no front license plate. Tinted windows, even in the front, which is illegal in Michigan. It started showing up around mid-September. Always between 2:15 and 2:45 a.m. It never parked at the main pumps. Always the last one near the edge of the lot, just barely in view of the cameras. And it never shut off. Engine running, headlights on, but no one ever stepped out. The first few nights I told myself it was nothing, maybe a tired driver, or someone waiting for a call, but it came back, again and again, same time, same place. Never a passenger, never a purchase, just there, watching. On night 5, I tried to squint through the windshield. I could make out a vague shape, someone in the driver's seat, still, too still, not slouched, not scrolling on a phone, just staring forward. It made me nervous, sure, but I didn't report it. What would I say? That someone sat in a car and didn't move. Night 9, it got worse. The car pulled up at 2:23 a.m. like clockwork, but this time it didn't just idle. It turned off its headlights, not the engine, just the lights. And the parking lights stayed on, blinking slowly, like eyes adjusting to the dark. I stood behind the counter, pretending to organize receipts, but my eyes were glued to the CCTV feed. At one point I looked up, and the reflection in the store glass showed the silhouette of a man, standing just outside the car, facing me. I didn't hear him open the door, didn't hear him move. He was just there. I ducked, heart hammering. When I peeked back, the figure was gone, but the car was still there, still running. I locked the door and turned off the break room light so I wouldn't be visible in silhouette. Then I waited. After about 15 minutes, the car finally pulled away. No screeching, no urgency, just a slow, gliding retreat into the night. The next morning I told Lewis, the morning shift guy, about it. He just shrugged, probably a weirdo. This place gets plenty, maybe, but weirdos don't come back 12 nights in a row. Weirdos don't watch from the shadows. On night 13, the sedan came earlier, 1:56 a.m., and this time it parked right in front of the glass doors, headlights off. I felt paralyzed. The security monitor showed the driver's side door creaking open. A man stepped out holding something. A crumpled $100 bill. He looked ordinary, hoodie, jeans, no visible weapons, but there was something in his face. Or maybe the lack of something. He handed me the bill through the night window, didn't speak. I looked at it, wrong paper, faded print, no watermark, obvious fake. I pushed it back under the glass. Sorry, I can't accept this. He didn't argue, didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in close to the glass and asked, "So you here alone most nights?" Flat voice. Dead tone, not curiosity, a checklist. I didn't respond, just stared at him. He tilted his head. "Someone relieve you or you close up by yourself." My skin went cold. I said the only thing I could think of. "Shift info's confidential, sir." He smiled, then backed away. Didn't say goodbye, didn't even blink. He just walked back to the car, but he didn't get in. He stood next to the door, facing the store, for a full minute, then drove away. That night I couldn't sleep. Every noise outside my apartment felt like tires on gravel. Every shadow looked like his silhouette. I started carrying pepper spray in my hoodie pocket, turned off the backroom light every shift, but he didn't come back. Not the next night, or the one after, until day 17. That night he didn't pull into the lot. He parked across the street, just far enough to barely show up on the outer edge of the gas pump camera, lights off. Still, I only noticed because of the faint red glow of his dashboard. He didn't get out, didn't move, but I knew he was there, watching. That night I left my shift early. I didn't tell anyone, just said I was feeling sick. But that wasn't the end, not even close. 2 days later, a woman came in around 6:30 a.m. grabbing a coffee on her way to work. She glanced toward the street and asked casually, "Is that your friend out there?" I froze. She pointed. White sedan, parked at the edge of the lot. "He's been leaning on the car since before I pulled in, just staring at the store." I walked to the door, stepped out. He was there, standing, not in the car. Same hoodie, same jeans, same blank expression. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched, like I was the one intruding. I stepped back inside, turned around to look again. Gone, vanished. No car engine, no movement, just empty asphalt. I filed a report with the police. Showed them the camera footage. They said they'd patrol the area, but unless he did something illegal, there was nothing they could do. That night, I worked with a pocket knife in my apron. He never returned, but I kept seeing cars like his. At stoplights, at intersections, parked by the dorms, and each time I held my breath, waited, until I could prove it wasn't him, until I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. But the fear never left. Because what if he wasn't stalking me? What if I was being tested? What if he only needed me to fail once, accept the fake bill, tell him I was alone, let him in? And then what? I don't know, I don't want to know. All I know is this: some people knock, others just watch. And the scariest ones, they don't do either. They wait until you open the door. Part 5. No dog, just a distraction, the vet clinic raid. I used to believe the scariest thing at 3 a.m. was losing a heartbeat on a patient. I was wrong. My name's Riley. I'm 26, and I used to work the overnight shift at a small 24-hour veterinary clinic in Flagstaff, Arizona. 3 exam rooms, 1 surgery suite, 1 kennel bay, 1 staff member per night, just me. That night started like any other. A golden retriever named Duke had just come out of surgery for a blockage. Sweet old boy. I had him hooked up to fluids, heart rate monitor, and a soft towel under his head. He blinked at me like he knew I was helping. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard the buzzer at the front door. That wasn't unusual. We were technically open for emergencies, though most people called ahead. I walked to the lobby. A man stood outside, pacing, cradling a large bundle of towels. He looked frantic, agitated. His baseball cap was pulled low and his jacket looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. He pressed the intercom. "Please, my dog was hit by a car. He's bleeding bad." I didn't ask questions. I didn't think. I hit the door unlock button and ran to clear an exam table. But when I turned around to call him in, he wasn't behind me. The lobby was empty. I stepped back into the hallway. Nothing. I called out, "Sir. This way, please." No answer. Then I saw the towel bundle. It was lying near the hallway door on the floor. Unraveled, empty. No blood, no fur, no dog. My stomach twisted. I backed away. I reached for the wall-mounted phone, heart racing. That's when I noticed the back door was open. The emergency exit we only used for daytime deliveries. It had a brick wedged under it. A brick we only kept outside. My hands went ice cold. That door was supposed to stay locked at night. And beyond it, I saw something worse. The storage room light was on. That's where we kept our controlled substances. Painkillers, tranquilizers, sedatives. I moved carefully, hugging the wall, breathing shallow. I had no weapon. My phone was still at the front desk. And if he had anything on him, knife, syringe, I wouldn't stand a chance. I made it to the storage door. The lock wasn't broken. It was just open. I nudged it with my foot. Inside, the cabinet was slightly ajar, not forced, not smashed, picked, or someone had watched us enter the code. I closed it, locked it again, latched the exit, still no sign of him. But I could feel it, that sense of being watched. I ran to the front, grabbed the phone, called Dr. Harlow, our on-call vet. She picked up on the first ring. I told her everything, my voice cracking halfway through. Her reply made my skin crawl. "Didn't that guy come in Tuesday morning?" "What guy?" "The one asking about meds for his German Shepherd." I froze. "Yeah." A man had come in right before my shift ended, asking for a specific brand of post-op medication. Said his vet was closed. We told him we couldn't dispense anything without a script. He'd smiled, said he understood. That had been him. He was scouting. He saw the code, saw that I was alone. He planned this. I called the police. The deputy arrived 10 minutes later. We did a sweep. The man was gone, but 3 vials were missing from the cabinet. And not just any vials, injectables, fast-acting sedatives, enough to knock out a grown adult in seconds. The deputy looked grim. "These types of break-ins are getting more common," he said. "Clinics are easier than pharmacies, less security, more vulnerability, and people don't think of them as targets. They're wrong." That night haunted me for weeks. I replayed every moment. How easily I unlocked the door. How stupid I'd been to trust someone holding a towel. I kept asking myself the same question. What if he wasn't just there for the drugs? What if he'd planned something else? Something worse? I started noticing things. Once I came in and the back door's deadbolt was turned halfway. Another time I found scratch marks near the cabinet lock, like someone had practiced with a tool. Then 2 weeks later I found something taped under the counter near the receptionist's computer. A miniature camera, still running. It had a micro SD card inside. We sent it to the police. The footage covered 2 weeks, mostly mundane. Me typing, feeding animals, restocking shelves. But on 3 different nights, someone had entered the lobby without triggering the buzzer. Slid in. Watched silently from behind the half wall that separated the exam bay. Always around 3 a.m., always after the parking lot lights were cut. The footage was grainy, but one frame, just one, captured his face clearly enough. It was the same man, the same hat, same jacket, same blank expression. Watching. Waiting, he never took anything on those nights. Never moved beyond the lobby, just watched, as if studying, as if waiting for the right moment. I changed jobs. I still work in vet care, but never alone, never at night. And never without a camera system I personally monitor. But I still think about him, still wonder what he planned. And the part that chills me most, he never ran, never scrambled, he walked, like he'd done it before, like he'd do it again. Part 6. The Trucker with Shackles is Sleeper Cab from Hell. You ever feel the air go still, not just quiet but dead? That's how I knew something was wrong. The night was normal at first. It was late November, cold. So cold the fog from my breath looked like cigarette smoke. I was working the graveyard shift at a diesel repair garage just off I-84, outside Twin Falls, Idaho. One of those middle-of-nowhere places where the only sound after midnight is wind, your heartbeat, and the buzzing of fluorescent lights that never quite stop flickering. I've been a mechanic most of my life. Nothing really shakes me anymore. I've seen long-haul truckers puke blood in the waiting room, junkies crash out in the parking lot. Once found a raccoon chewing on beef jerky in the engine block of a moving rig. But that night was different. It started at 12:14 a.m. A semi rolled in, slow, heavy, crawling into the bay like a dying animal. The headlights flickered before cutting off. I remember thinking the whole rig looked like it had been on fire once and never fully recovered. The man who stepped out didn't say a word. He just nodded toward the hood. His face was shadowed under a low-slung cap, jacket zipped up to the neck, hands in his pockets. No handshake, no name. Something about him unsettled me immediately. Not aggressive, not twitchy, just still, too still. I asked what the issue was. He said, low and quiet, "Shifting's off. Makes a sound," that was it. No eye contact, no small talk. Just turned and leaned against the garage wall, lighting a cigarette. I got to work, crawled under the truck. Clutch linkage looked a little off. Nothing major. But the deeper I went, the stranger it got. The undercarriage smelled like bleach. Fresh, and the back tire well had brown smears. Dried, rust-colored, maybe mud, maybe not. Something brushed my arm. I reached up, thinking it was a cable. It was a length of thick, braided rope, looped neatly, tied tight. Why would a trucker keep that dangling under the frame? My hands started to sweat, even in the cold. When I rolled out from under the truck, the man was gone. Not leaning, not inside, just vanished. But the cigarette was still burning. Still warm, I called out. No answer. I went to grab my coat off the hook near the door. That's when I noticed my keys were gone. I keep them zipped in the inner pocket. Always. I checked the floor, the workbench, dumped the coat. Nothing. Panic started to climb up my spine like ice water. I turned to the truck. The cab door was slightly ajar, still idling, still empty. I stepped up and peered inside, flashlight in hand. What I saw made my stomach flip. The sleeper compartment in the back wasn't a bed. It was a cage. A metal frame welded into the cabin walls with bolted-down cuffs, ankle and wrist level. Bloodstains on the floor mat. Deep gouges in the leather walls like claw marks. A plastic tarp folded in the corner. A machete tucked beside a foam mattress stained black at the center. That wasn't a place to sleep. That was a place to keep someone. I backed out, stumbled down from the cab and dropped the flashlight. It spun on the floor, casting warped shadows. I ran to the office. Door locked, but I never locked it. That's when I heard it. The slow, mechanical thunk of the bay door sliding shut. Not automatic, manual. Someone was pulling it down from the inside. I slammed into the side door, burst into the office, and locked it behind me. My hands were shaking. The landline had no signal. Storm must have knocked it out. I checked the monitors. Most were dark. One flickered, the supply closet camera, just static and shadows, until a shape moved across the frame. A man, the same man, holding my keys. He looked directly at the camera and smiled. That's when the lights cut out. The entire building plunged into blackness. Only the exit sign stayed lit, flickering like a candle. I grabbed the tire iron from behind the counter, hid under the desk. For minutes, maybe hours, I didn't move, just the sound of breathing. Not mine, his, ragged right outside the office door. I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer I hadn't said since I was a child. At some point it stopped. The breathing, the footsteps, the presence. I opened the door slowly, weapon raised. The garage bay was empty. The truck, gone, the only trace. Two bloody fingerprints on the glass door leading outside, and my keys tossed into the sink soaked in bleach. The cops came an hour later, took photos, took samples. Dusting found nothing. No prints, no shoe marks, no video like he never existed, but he did. Because I found something else later wedged into the vent above my locker. A driver's logbook, not mine, his. It had names, dates, locations, lists of truck stops and gas stations. Next to some names, a red X next to others, circled question marks, and next to mine, an arrow, pointing to a note, too alert, try again later. I quit the next morning. I don't work nights anymore. Don't work garages either. But sometimes, when I see a white semi idling at a red light, I look into the cab, and I wonder, is there someone else in there? Someone behind the driver? Someone not supposed to be, and I pray the truck just keeps driving. Part 7, You Owe Me, the Pharmacy Stalker Files. My name's Jasmine. I'm 41 years old, and I've been working the night shift at a 24-hour pharmacy just outside Columbus, Ohio, for almost 3 years. It's quiet work. Most nights are just refilling shelves, answering late-night phone calls about side effects, and handing out ibuprofen to truckers or insomniacs. I liked the silence. It made me feel in control. Like I was the last line of care when the world had gone to bed. But I've come to learn something. Silence doesn't mean peace. Sometimes it means you're being watched, and they're waiting for you to notice. It was a Tuesday, technically Wednesday morning. Just past 3:00 a.m. I was restocking the cold medicine aisle when the front doors slid open. That familiar chime. I didn't even look up at first. But after a few seconds, I realized I couldn't hear footsteps. No shuffle of shoes, no cough, no movement at all. I glanced at the cameras above the counter. A man had entered, tall, late 30s, maybe 40s, wearing an oversized brown coat and a gray beanie. His back was turned. He stood in the cold medicine aisle, not moving, just there. I gave him time. Some customers are awkward or high or shy. But after 20 minutes of him just standing there, I called out, "Need help finding something?" That's when he turned. Not all the way, just enough for me to see his face, expressionless. Then he spoke, not loud, not angry, just focused. "I'm just waiting for the right moment." He said it like he meant something specific, like it was part of a plan. The way you'd say, "I'm waiting for my cue," if you were on stage. I backed behind the counter and locked the swing door latch. My hands were shaking. I pressed the silent alarm under the register. He didn't move, didn't even blink. Just stood in aisle 3, head cocked slightly, like he was listening to music only he could hear. Then he started walking toward the counter. Slow, steady. I backed up until I hit the wall behind me. "Come on, come on." I whispered it to myself, begging for the police to arrive. Then he did something I'll never forget. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a rock, a jagged, palm-sized piece of granite. and with a loud grunt slammed it against the plexiglass divider. The sound exploded through the store. A spiderweb crack appeared in the bottom panel. Then he leaned in and said, "You owe me, Jasmine." He said my name, my full name. I don't wear a name tag. There was no way he could have known that unless he'd been here before, unless he'd been watching. The police arrived less than a minute later, sirens cutting through the night like a knife. He didn't flinch, didn't run. He dropped the rock, backed away, and sat calmly on one of the waiting chairs like he was checking in for an appointment. They arrested him without resistance. He didn't say another word, but the horror wasn't over, not even close. Because later that morning, one of the officers returned to the store. He had a look on his face like he didn't know how to say what he needed to say. He handed me a small, battered notebook. "We found this in his backpack." I opened it. Inside were pages and pages of writing. Some entries were neat, some frantic, almost illegible, sketches, notes, and on the first page in block letters, Jasmine M. Harris. My middle name, my work schedule, underlined words like parks and back, alone at 3:00, smiles when nervous. There were pages of imagined conversations with me, lines like she pretended she didn't know me. I waited, I watched, I was patient, she still hasn't paid me back. But I'd never seen him before in my life, ever. We ran a prescription search. Turns out he had filled a prescription here 3 weeks prior, a basic antibiotic. I remembered him now vaguely. Quiet, no eye contact, paid in cash. That was the night he saw my name on the bottle label. That's when it started. The officer continued. He'd been living in his car behind a nearby warehouse. Inside, they found 3 more notebooks, maps, surveillance notes, drawings of the pharmacy. In one sketch, he'd drawn the inside of the store, with me behind the counter, my posture, my bun, my glasses. The sketch was dated 11 nights ago. We checked the security logs. That night, the outside cameras glitched, just like the others. He had been coming back, watching, documenting, and waiting, but for what? That's the question I still don't have the courage to answer. I took a leave of absence, eventually transferred to another location. Day shift only. I don't wear name tags anymore. I changed my locks, stopped parking in the same spot, but I still check my backseat every night, still pause before opening the store door. Because here's the part I haven't told anyone. 2 weeks ago, I found a photo taped to my mailbox. A Polaroid of me taken from the corner of the new pharmacy. Same sweater, same purse, same smile, and written on the bottom, "You're still smiling. That means you remember." Part 8, The Others Who Never Told, Interwoven Fates. It started as a Reddit post. Just a random night on our no sleep. Someone describing a strange man who kept pulling into their gas station at 2:40 a.m. Each night, never got out, tinted windows, engine running. One day he asked a question no stranger should ask: "You close up alone?" The post didn't get much traction at first, but then the comments came. "Wait, I had a guy do something similar at the pharmacy I work at. Mine too. Same time, same stare." Another comment: "Did he leave behind a Polaroid?" Then another, and another. They started deeming each other, then Zoom calls. Within 2 weeks there were 9 of them, all scattered across the U.S., Arizona, Idaho, Ohio, Michigan, Georgia, Washington, Montana, Colorado. All worked night shifts. All were alone. And all had stories that sounded like variations of the same nightmare. They called themselves the Echoes Group. What they discovered next chilled them more than the original events. One member, Claire, had saved screenshots of her building's corrupted camera footage. Another, Marcus, had the delivery logbook with the odd red symbols. Riley, the vet tech, still had that miniature camera they pulled from under her counter. None of them had looked too closely until now. They compared timestamps, locations, artifacts. Each had assumed their experience was isolated, a fluke, but the evidence said otherwise. The camera footage glitches, same exact time, 3:10 a.m. The Polaroids, same type of film, manufactured in a batch recalled in 2016 for coding inconsistencies. The red symbols in the trucker's notebook matched symbols from the same surveillance sketches found in Jasmine Stalker's journal. Even the handwriting, the "You Owe Me" scrawl, matched notes recovered in Flagstaff and Ann Arbor. That's when it hit them. This wasn't one person. It wasn't just a drifter or a stalker. It was a system, an organized network, targeting isolated workers in quiet corners of the country, studying them, photographing them, testing boundaries, and vanishing before anyone could fully react. Angela, the fast food manager, found something else. In her old headset, tucked beneath the battery cover, she found a strip of copper wire attached to a chip. Not a battery defect. Something else. The tech friend she sent it to ran a scan. It was a signal injector, meaning someone could patch audio directly into her headset system from nearby without speaking into the drive-thru. So when she heard, "Are you alone in there?" it hadn't come from outside. It had come from inside her system. Deshaun had also kept the fake $100 bill. He mailed it to a forensic friend in Detroit. The ink wasn't normal. It was UV reactive, but only under a specific wavelength, like old military tags. Under that light, a message appeared: test incomplete, subject observed, reassess location. Every piece told the same story. They weren't victims of coincidence. They had been chosen, scouted, watched, logged, marked by someone or some group, testing how people react when they're alone, vulnerable, and afraid. The Echoes group began collecting everything: photos, maps, witness accounts, employee logs, and then something else happened. Claire, who hadn't shared her address with anyone in the group, received a package. No return label. Inside, a stitched book. Leather-bound, torn pages inside. Each page contained handwritten summaries of their stories, with annotations, dates, behavioral notes, heart rate estimates, even predictions: "Will call police within 3 minutes, will hide under desk, will quit within 2 weeks." And they were accurate. At the bottom of the final page, set aside for future tracking. Not ready yet. The handwriting matched the one in Jasmine's notebook. The message was clear. They were still being watched. Not for harm, not for fun, but for data. They were experiments, test subjects in something too big to name. Riley said it best on one of their final calls: "Whatever this is, it's not about what happened, it's about how we responded, about how fear rewires us, how we adapt, how we crumble. And how many more are out there who don't even know they're part of it? There are whispers, stories in closed forums and lost threads. A janitor in Tampa who disappeared mid-shift. A nurse in Fresno who kept getting notes written in her own handwriting. A truck stop cashier in Louisiana who woke up inside a locked freezer with no memory of how she got there. None of it made the news, but it's all happening. Right now." Claire left Seattle. Marcus hasn't stepped foot inside a gas station since. Angela keeps a loaded taser beside her shampoo bottle. Jasmine sleeps with her bedroom lights on. Riley installed 3 locks on her apartment door and checks each one every hour. And Deshaun, he doesn't speak much anymore. Not since he got a package last week. No note, just a Polaroid of all of them, taken at the exact moment they logged into their last Zoom call. But none of them remembered taking it, and no one had shared their camera feeds. The picture was labeled, "Stage 2 begins soon." They haven't spoken since. And maybe the end. But probably not. Because if you're listening to this and something sounds familiar, a photo, a car, a voice, a knock you swore you imagined, then maybe you've been part of it too. And if they're watching you now, remember, they don't need to break in. They just need you to feel alone. Echoes After Midnight was a true inspired horror series exploring isolation, surveillance, and unseen patterns that prey on the vulnerable. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories that dig beneath the skin. Share this with someone who works late. And remember, fear doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it leaves you a Polaroid. This series was built on stories inspired by real people, real fear, real survival, and if it made your heart race, your palms sweat, your breath catch, then know this, that reaction, that's your instinct sharpening. That's your subconscious telling you something matters. So let's not let these stories fade into the algorithm. If this series spoke to you, if you want to hear more true inspired horror that doesn't just scare you, but teaches you something, please hit that subscribe button. Like the video, share it with someone you trust. It helps us tell more stories that matter. It helps us reach someone who might need it more than we know. And it helps us remember that no one should ever feel alone when something doesn't feel right. Not in a gas station, not in a clinic, not in an apartment building, not behind a pharmacy counter, and not here, not now, not with Echoes After Midnight. We'll see you in the next one, and until then, keep your eyes open, keep your instincts sharp, and never ignore the silence, because sometimes silence is how the danger says hello.